So it has been a little over a week that I've been using the iPhone XR, and let me tell you guys what I think about it so far. Will I keep using it? Is it the phone for me? Is it the phone for you? I don't know. Let's find out. So I'm gonna start talking about the biggest thing that sets this phone apart from something more expensive like the iPhone XS or XS Max, and that's the display. It is an LCD Retina, so it's not OLED. It's an 828p display. It's not even 1080p. And even though that sounds like it would be terrible, and I saw the difference when I first unboxed it next to the iPhone XS Max, which I was using before. But after using it, it's something that you get used to, especially Apple's Retina display. Like, the colors just pop. I mean, no matter what phone I have, I always watch YouTube videos. Something that I especially always do is, like, before uploading a video, I usually put it onto my phone since my Wi-Fi at home sucks. So I usually upload through LTE, which means I'll, a lot of the times, watch over my videos on my phone before setting them live. And yeah, like, I've done that perfectly fine. Like, it's not something that like seems or feels different on this display just because it's lower res. So my point with all of that is that if you're thinking about picking up this phone and you're not sure about it because that display doesn't seem too great, I'd say just go to an Apple store and look at it for yourself and see that it really isn't a big deal. If anything, the biggest difference that you're gonna notice from display to display, like XR versus XS and XS Max, is not the display itself, but is the bezels around it. They're definitely noticeably bigger to me. Like, it's like not a huge difference, but from using my XS Max all day to going to this, I still notice it, especially like as soon as I see my XS Max again, it's like, why can't those bezels be smaller? Just a little bit smaller. But if you're somebody who's upgrading from an older iPhone, like the iPhone 8 and before, you're gonna love this the second you pick it up because it gives you that iPhone 10 and above feel. Even though it's not as great on paper, if you want a newer feeling iPhone and you don't wanna put out all the money, this is an amazing option when it comes to the display alone. But apart from the display, which, like I've said, I have fully gotten used to, something that I haven't fully gotten used to with this phone that's also new to it is the size, 6.1 inches, which, okay, I know, like, when I say that, it's like, are you serious? Like 6.1 versus the 6.5 on the iPhone XS Max, really not a big difference. And to a lot of people, it isn't a big deal. But when you're jumping back and forth and just like watching videos on your phone all the time, that slightly bigger display, to me, I like having the bigger screen. I think it's cool, which is also another like weird thing for me to say, I feel like, because I have smaller hands. So I am fumbling around a little bit with the XS Max, and it's overall bigger, and it is harder to hold one-handed. This definitely makes more sense for me and a lot of people. It would be kind of cool to see something like a XR Max, but then I feel like that's too much phones for Apple, so maybe not. I will say this though, if there wasn't the option of having a XS Max and it was just between XR versus XS, and let's just pretend that those two were the same size, like both, let's just pretend that they're both 6.1 inches. I'd probably go for the XR because I've been loving the colors that you get with these phones, like the yellow. I've spent some time with the blue one that also, between all the colors, like the yellow and blue, are just perfect. So we talked about the display, the size of this phone, the colors, and I'm gonna keep defaulting to the price because even though it isn't a budget phone, like $750 is not cheap, but it is Apple's version of a 2018 budget phone. You get the same exact feeling of owning a XS or XS Max with just some slight differences, and you save money while doing that. But the biggest question is, are those slight differences or downgrades in some ways going to affect your everyday use in a negative way? No. The answer is no, for me at least. I mean, obviously, if you're paying less for a phone, you're going to get a less premium device. And when I say less premium, there's certain things like the build of this phone. There's aluminum on the sides versus the stainless steel that you would get on the XS and XS Max, which doesn't feel like a downgrade because I feel like it looks really cool. It's a cool look to it, but it is technically a cheaper material on the sides, and it is a slightly thicker device overall. There's also no 3D touch, so you lose the ability to get to those shortcuts on certain apps or on the lock screen when you're toggling on the flashlight and the camera. It's a long press instead of a 3D touch, which again, I'm not really affected by because I've realized in the past week of using this phone that I don't really use those 3D touch shortcuts anyway, so not really bothered by that. But I will say something that is kind of annoying is a long press for the flashlight because I accidentally toggle that on all the time. I've done it several times while filming this video just now. So watch out for that if you do use this phone. This phone is also IP67 water resistant instead of 68 on the XS and XS Max. So yeah, slightly less water resistant, but if you drop a couple raindrops or taking it out on a rainy day or even drop it into a pool, you'll still be fine. Another thing that I guess I'll mention just because it is different is that the XR is only capable of advanced LTE and not gigabyte LTE like the XS or XS Max that will technically deliver a gigabyte per second to your phone. But the thing is, I'm definitely not around those type of speeds. I'm not even around 100 megabytes per second where I usually am. So definitely not affected by that. You probably won't be either. But considering all those differences, which do make the phone cheaper and technically less premium, it's still a very premium feeling phone, and I don't feel like I'm giving up on much while I'm using it. Using it every day in terms of performance, again, feels pretty much identical to the XS Max that I came from, because besides the cosmetic differences internally, it has the A12 Bionic chip, and that mixed with the latest version of iOS 12, it's just gonna give you the same iPhone experience that you'd expect out of the more expensive phones. And it actually even better in some ways because battery life on here is amazing. It does have a smaller battery, which again is one of those things where on paper looks terrible, but when you use it, it's actually better thanks to the LCD display not sucking as much power as an OLED display would. But of course, the deciding factor for me using a phone is for its camera. Like, the camera has got to be good. And let me tell you, the camera on here did not disappoint, because again, it is also basically the same, even though you're only seeing one instead of two on the XS or XS Max, it's still pretty much the same. Here's a quick little selfie video test on the iPhone XR. This is 1080p at 24 frames per second, looking good. And before I go and take a look at all the photos that I took on the XR, I want to take the time to thank today's sponsor, Skillshare. If you guys haven't heard of Skillshare, it is a huge online learning community where you can take a bunch of classes on different subjects and topics, pretty much anything. There's design courses, there's business, technology, there's even photography, which I've been checking out myself to step up my photo game a little bit. But yeah, whatever you guys are into or interested in, there's probably classes on it, so definitely recommend checking it out if you want to improve your skills on something that you love. With a premium membership on Skillshare, you get unlimited access to all of these high quality classes, and it's actually super affordable too. If you decide to do it annually, it's less than $10 a month, which is amazing. Also, since Skillshare is sponsoring this video, the first 500 people to check out that promo link in the description below get the first 2 months completely free. You can try it out risk-free. So definitely check out that link in the description and stick to the end of this video because Skillshare and I have a little surprise for you. And here's some pictures that I took with the XR, and I'll put some next to the XS Max as well, just to see that straight comparison. But you'll notice that they're really not that different because yes, the XR has that same main camera that we see on the XS and XS Max, the same new and improved and bigger sensor. Really, all the pictures on here are gonna look pretty much identical, whether it's daylight, low light, selfies. The only difference that you'll really see is when it comes to portrait mode pictures, because the XR is only using its main camera to take these portrait shots with its software, where the XS and XS Max uses its telephoto lens. So portrait mode pictures are gonna look a little less realistic, and sometimes mistakes will be more visible because it's using a software and it's not using a whole nother lens to take them. And because it is software based, it'll only detect people and not objects. subjects when you're taking portrait pics, but they still look pretty great. And an added bonus with them is that you get a wider angled portrait shot that you don't usually get with the 10s and 10s Max. But aside from that, everything else, like I said, is pretty much identical. We're seeing all the new camera features that we saw on this year's 10s and 10s Max, like Smart HDR, so you get those beautifully exposed and balanced shots that we're seeing this year, and also depth control where you can change the aperture after the photo was taken. But yeah, I really have been loving taking pictures with the 10R because it was pretty much what I was used to with the 10s Max minus the telephoto lens, which I feel like I'm not alone when I say this, but I don't really ever use the telephoto lens on its own unless I'm taking portrait mode pictures, so I'm not really inconvenienced by that. So as you can tell, I've had a great week with the iPhone XR, and even though I was technically downgrading by using it, there's nothing that really felt like a downgrade. Even the things I was concerned about, like the LCD display, is just something that still looks great, even though it's less quality. That mixed with, like, I didn't really talk about the speakers, but speakers sound great, and overall it feels like using a 10s Max with even the smaller details like having wireless charging in here, that mixed with great battery life, and then the bigger things like the same great camera on the 10s and 10s Max, which probably was my biggest concern with using this phone, because gotta make sure that it takes great photos, and it does. So I've been pretty happy using this phone, but I guess we'll see as time goes on. And now let's talk about that giveaway with Skillshare. We're giving away an iPhone XR. So here are those giveaway rules in 4K 24 footage on the iPhone XR. You've made it to the end of the video, so it's time to talk about that giveaway that I have going on with Skillshare. We're giving away a brand new iPhone XR, and here's what you gotta do to win one. Number 1, follow me on Instagram and like my last photo. Number 2, sign up with Skillshare within the next 30 days with that link in the description below. And number 3, like this YouTube video and comment below letting me know which class you're gonna take on Skillshare. And of course, I'll have all those rules written down in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Good luck on the giveaway, and I'll see you later.